When she made the decision to sell her only treasure, it wasn't driven by weakness or carelessness, but by hunger. Real, aching hunger that leaves no room for pride. This wasn't a dramatic gesture meant to earn sympathy. It was a quiet surrender to survival. Imagine holding the last meaningful thing you own, something tied to memory, identity, and hope, and realizing it can no longer protect you from an empty stomach. In moments like these, sacrifice stops being heroic and becomes necessary. Many people judge such choices from a distance, unaware of the daily calculations the poor are forced to make just to see another sunrise. What she gave up wasn't just an object. It was security, history, and a piece of herself. And in that single act, she revealed a truth we often overlook. Survival can demand everything. What's often missed in stories like hers is the strength that lives quietly beneath poverty. Not the loud, celebrated kind of strength, but the kind that wakes up every day with uncertainty and still chooses integrity. She stood there with empty hands, yet she carried patience, self-respect, and an unbroken spirit. Poverty had taken comfort, choices, and safety, but it hadn't taken her values. She didn't beg, manipulate, or blame the world for what it had denied her. Instead, she endured with a calm dignity that money can't buy. That kind of strength doesn't show up on balance sheets or resumes, but it's the backbone of survival for millions. For the billionaire, this encounter wasn't supposed to matter. He had seen hardship before, or at least he thought he had numbers on reports. Charity galas, carefully framed stories of need. But standing there, watching her part with everything she had just to eat, something shifted. This wasn't inefficiency or poor planning. This was survival stripped bare. For the first time, wealth felt strangely inadequate, unable to explain what he was witnessing. He realized how easily comfort creates distance, how money can insulate a person from understanding the true cost of being poor. Her calm resolve unsettled him more than desperation ever could. It challenged the quiet belief that success is always earned and suffering somehow deserved. In that moment, his fortune stopped feeling like proof of wisdom and started feeling like responsibility. Because once you truly see someone, you can no longer pretend you didn't. As he looked closer, the object she offered faded into the background. What held his attention wasn't its age, its rarity, or its price, but the way she held it steady, respectful, without desperation. In that moment, he understood that value isn't always attached to what can be bought or sold. He saw intelligence sharpened by struggle, honesty shaped by loss, and pride that refused to be broken. The world had taught him to assess worth quickly, to scan B surfaces and assign numbers, but she didn't fit into any familiar measure. Her eyes carried stories no market could appraise, and her silence spoke louder than any pitch. He realized how often people are overlooked simply because their value doesn't announce itself. And standing there, he wasn't seeing poverty anymore. He was seeing humanity, clear and undeniable. That recognition opened the door to compassion. Not the kind that comes from guilt or obligation, but the kind that changes how you move through the world. He didn't feel like a savior in that moment. He felt human. Compassion wasn't a grand gesture or a public display. It was a pauser willingness to sit with discomfort and respond with sincerity. For her, it wasn't just about receiving help. It was about being seen without judgment. For him, it was the realization that generosity isn't measured by how much you give, but by how deeply you understand why it's needed. That single exchange shifted the balance between them, dissolving the invisible wall money often builds. It reminded him that compassion doesn't elevate one person above another, it brings them to the same level, and in that shared space, both of their lives quietly changed. In the end, the story doesn't belong to wealth or poverty, but to perspective. The billionaire walked away richer, in a way his balance sheets would never reflect, carrying a lesson no investment could teach. True richness revealed itself not in what he owned, but in what he learned to value: empathy, humility, and connection. The woman, who had once held nothing but an object to trade, became the mirror that showed him who he really was and who he could be. This wasn't a tale about understanding reshaping everything. When we begin to measure success by how we treat people rather than what we accumulate, something shifts inside us. We start to see that the greatest returns in life come from compassion freely given and humanity fully recognized. And that is the kind of wealth that never runs out.